Hey guys, welcome to another episode of PB Garage. In today's episode, I want to just kind of wrap up this year, my thoughts and impressions on the car. I've put a lot of miles on it and I've done a lot of stuff. So I'm just out driving the car to get the engine warmed up because I want to do an oil change and maybe a compression test when I get back. And then I'm gonna kind of tuck it away for the winter. So the biggest success I've had with the car is getting the power steering working. I drove it for a while without power steering and it was really frustrating. I was throwing pumps at it left, right, and center. Finally did the rack and the pump, and that cured the problem. The other thing I did was bring it to a dyno, so I got some baseline numbers. In terms of drivability, the car is very fast. I'm very happy with how it runs, but for bragging rights, it would be nice to get over that 400 horsepower mark. So my plan for next year to do that is to switch fuels. Right now I'm using 94 octane and Boostane. I want to switch to a blend of 94 octane and E85 to get me at about E40 or E50. And then I'll bring it back to the dyno with Tyler and we'll tune it again and see if we can break that 400 mark. So one thing I've been noticing on startup, if the car's been sitting for several days, is a little bit of blue smoke for for a few seconds, kind of like a puff, and then it goes away and then the car doesn't burn anything after that. Yeah, so I'm not really sure what to make of that, but I'm not too worried. The car runs great, so I'm not going to stress about it that much. My overall thoughts on the car and whether I'd do anything different if I were to do it all over again is a minor annoyance. Is the suspension. It's quite stiff. It's tolerable for sure, but I guess I've gotten to a point in my life where I value something a bit more supple than kind of the race car feel. These H&Rs, they're not full race car, but they do feel quite stiff. Yeah, I'd maybe select a different coilover brand if I were to do that again. In terms of turbos, definitely happy with the way they perform. I don't think I would start off with anything bigger. Honestly, I think these are more than enough for my style of driving. Oh man. Brakes are great. The Wilwood calipers, the parking brake calipers in the back, they stick a little bit as the car warms up. So I'm gonna take those apart and see if I can free them up a little bit. It's not too bad. Like, I got it to the point where I can use the parking brake and it holds the car in the driveway on a bit of an incline, no problem. But if I tighten up the adjusters any more than that, then they start to make a bit of noise and squeak and stuff. So they drag on the rotors a little bit. So I'll try and fix those this winter if I get a chance. Alright guys, so I just did a compression test on the engine to see where I'm at health-wise, and unfortunately I'm sitting at 130 on cylinder number 2, so it's a bit low compared to the others. The others are all in the low 170s, mid 170s. What does that mean? You know what? I'm not sure. Maybe something with the rebuild and the rings on that cylinder got messed up, but car runs okay, so I'm not going to make any changes really. I'm just going to run it the way it is and hope for the best. I'll keep an eye on it. I'll do another test next year and just make sure that it's trending flat and it's not getting any worse. So I'm going to put it in the air and do an oil change next and just do a quick inspection underneath and make sure there's no other leaks. I do have the one near the valve cover on this side and the turbo drain on the other side. Okay, so while investigating the oil leak on the driver's side that leaks onto the exhaust manifold, the number 5 spark plug has got oil on it. So I'm starting to suspect the valve cover gasket. If I look inside, I can see oil down the bottom side of the valve cover. I've got my 10 mil socket here and I just put it on top of one of these nuts and it's not even finger tight. So the other ones are okay, but I'm gonna put a wrench on those and just make sure they're tight. But it seems like a couple of these nuts may have come loose. So I'll check them all, both sides, and just make sure that, yeah, see this one here is loose as well, right in the center on the other side. So I'll tighten that up. Let's do some quick checks and make sure everything's snug the way it should be. Alright, so I'm under the car here checking things out. First thing I notice over here, one of my CVs exploded. You can see the mess that it caused. That's a brand new boot that I installed when I did the rebuild. The one on this side, I notice has a split right there. So I'm wondering if it's gonna go soon as well. So aside from that, I've got some oil on the oil pan here. You can see on the back side of it, and I've traced it up behind these AC lines up in this area. So there's my turbo drain connection. This light's really bright, I apologize. So there's no ring in there that needs to be replaced most likely. It looks really tight. That's not going to be fun to replace. It shouldn't be too bad. And then on the other side, I have a bit of oil up here on this cooler hose. Anyway, I traced it back up. You can see a bit on this turbo pipe as well. So I think that's the valve cover up at the top, because it, you know, it snakes up in this area, goes all the way up. And I know there's oil on my exhaust manifold when I started it up today. Aside from that, everything's looking pretty good. The rear main seal is not leaking, fortunately. I did hit a can of Coke on the road a while ago, and it made this big gouge in my oil pan. Also my subframe right here. And coming back, you can even see massive gouges in my DTS bar. There's some nicks on it here. And then this clamp for my downpipe is completely bent. So it must have been one heck of a can of Coke. And it sounded pretty nasty too when I hit it. I thought my crankshaft fell out of the oil pan, blasted right through, but fortunately it was just a little bit of superficial damage. Coming towards the back of the car, my rear diff looks dry. At least that rebuild went well. Suspension stuff, a little bit dirty, but overall no noises or anything weird going on back here. Like I said, I'll pull these Wilwood calipers and take them apart and see if I can loosen them up a little bit. So I'm just going to disconnect this charge pipe from the passenger side. I'll do the same on the driver's side after, but I just want to see if there's any oil in here to indicate that my turbo seals have failed, and that might just explain why I'm you know, blowing a little bit of smoke on first startup after the car sits for a while. I don't think it's gonna have any oil in here, but it's just to give me a bit of confidence in that the turbos are still good. Yeah, completely dry. There's absolutely nothing in this charge pipe. It's a sigh of relief. I'll check the other side and see if it's the same thing. On my old Santorini B5 A4, turbo seals had blown and I was doing a timing belt job on it. When I disconnected the charge pipe, it let out about a quart of oil. It was pretty bad though. Just got it back enough here, got my finger in, bone dry as well. So pretty happy with that. To have a bit more access to that drain line bolt, I'm gonna drop my sway bar and swing it out of the way. That way I'll have full access to it. Now the factory uses a suck-ahead cap screw like this one in this location, but when I did the rebuild I used just a hex head, and that is gonna benefit me now because I can just use a regular wrench to take this off. It's just hard to get a grip, so if I'm just gonna ever so gently use a flat head to walk it out, and that, well, hopefully, there we go. So we'll take this O-ring off and inspect it. So here's the O-ring. I don't see anything wrong with it. There are no nicks on it. It doesn't look like it's lost any of its elasticity. It was a new O-ring when I put it in, so I don't have another one. I didn't order one yet, so yeah, I might just put this back on and see what happens. If it does leak again, I'll just replace it at the next oil change. Okay guys, that's a wrap for now. I'm done for the season. I got the CV boot to change, and I think that's pretty much it. I'm gonna put the rest of the car back together on top. The compression test is done. You know, not too thrilled about one cylinder being a bit low, but you know, it is what it is. So I'll just you know, drive the car as it is and enjoy it for what it is. Over the winter, I'll put that fuel pump in and the fuel pressure regulator. Again, hoping for that 400 horsepower mark. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching the videos this year and you know, following this build. It's been a lot of fun for me, and I'm glad to, you know, have shared this experience with you guys. And I'm, you know, the feedback and the comments you give, like, it really encourages me and helps me out with this build. It's the first time I take on something to this level, so it's been, you know, a big learning experience. Anyway, I'll try and get a few more videos up this year, maybe not related to this car, but yeah, I guess we'll see you next year. Thanks guys, bye.
Okay. Yikes.